right wing and right on the issues. Steve Gill.
Hey, welcome in. This is the Steve Gill Show. Talking a little legislative action with Lee Harrell, the Director of Government and Labor Relations for the Tennessee School Boards Association. This is not a Tennessee School Boards Association issue, but I got to mention that one state legislator, Julia Hurley, is getting some attention for her past career as a Hooters waitress on Fox just a minute ago. She's apparently thanking Hooters for giving her the background to understand how to be successful in the Tennessee legislature. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that says. Are we going to start seeing all the female interns up there wearing the short orange shorts and low-cut white tie? I know there's some legislators that might be in favor of that, but is that where we're headed? I mean, she got a lot of attention during her campaign for some racy photos involving her wearing nothing but a rope, and now she's back in the news with the Hooter background being given national attention. I mean, Fox News putting photos of her rope photo and the Hooters background, and they'll be serving hot wings in the legislature. They used to have the little grapefruit juice and the vodka that they'd be drinking on the floor. Now they'll be serving hot wings on the floor, apparently. But anyway, go to the website, gillreport.com. You can read more how Hooters legislator Hurley is back in the news. And I'm not sure this is the way you want to start a credible career in the legislature. She got like a speeding ticket also driving from Knoxville already. So she's getting attention. Just not sure it's the right kind of attention if you want to be a serious legislator. 800-688-9522. We are talking about schools and education. Lee Harrell is the Director of Government and Labor Relations for the Tennessee School Boards Association. We're talking about a piece of legislation that's been proposed by Glenn Cassida, State Representative Glenn Cassida, Deborah Maggart in the State House, and Jack Johnson, I think, is the Senate sponsor, carrying this bill that would basically take the TEA out as the negotiator for the teachers' union across the state of Tennessee. Lee, do the firemen, do the police officers across the state, do they have these kind of collective bargaining rights? And if so or if not, shouldn't they all be sort of on the same footing?
Well, those issues come up every year, and every year the General Assembly decides not to allow those other public entities to have this opportunity.
So firemen and police officers don't have this.
They do not. They have their professional associations, but there's no requirement that the local bodies, whether it be city or county, sit down with those associations and negotiate on their behalf.
The other issue that is part of this is whether or not the teachers union is getting the numbers of members, percentages of members in many of these counties to justify their claim to represent all the teachers in that particular school board area or county district. They've got to have over 50% representation in order to do it. And in a lot of cases, it doesn't appear they've actually got the numbers.
You're absolutely right. From the get-go, whenever they come into an area, if they can show they have 50% plus one teacher who wants to be part of that association, then they have the right to represent them for negotiations. But after that initial recognition, it's nearly impossible to move to decertify or to no longer recognize that union, because the burden is on the school board to prove the numbers aren't there.
And they don't have to give their roles. They don't have to give their membership.
There's no mechanism for how they do that, because there's no requirement to publish a list or to even sign an affidavit attesting to a certain number. There's absolutely no mechanism in place.
I know that one of the reasons a lot of teachers give for being a part of the teachers union is because of the liability insurance issue. They, and again, a lot of them could be covered under their homeowners insurance. There's been moves in the past in the state to make liability insurance just a part of what's the teacher's job, that's part of just their contract. I think it'd be about $2 or $3 a month or something per teacher, which you got 62,000 teachers across the state of Tennessee. But shouldn't that be a part of what they get? I mean, shouldn't they have protection in their liability of what they do in the classroom, as long as it's not an intentional act, which is kind of what's usually covered by insurance?
Right. Well, again, right now, if a teacher is sued, then it's the school board who represents that teacher. It's not like they're on their own in that classroom. The school board will represent them in the light of a lawsuit. But you're exactly right.
And if it's an intentional act, if it's something that is outside the bounds of what they were supposed to do as a teacher, then you can, I think, decline representation.
Right.
Just like an insurance company can. Look, if you go out there with your car and intentionally run somebody down, that's not a negligent act, and they're not going to defend you on that.
Right, and you alluded to it just a couple moments ago about the homeowner's insurance. I talked to an insurance agent recently who said he could provide that same insurance for about $15 a year, rather than the $300, $400, $500 that teachers are paying right now.
Yeah, and they're paying that big money. And again, that's what the teachers union is using to pay huge salaries, $180,000 a year salaries, right, plus to their executive director. They're putting it into the political process and more. Quick question from Murray, who's a former school board member and had a question about the teachers union. You're on with Murray with Steve Gill and Lee Harrell. Welcome in.
Steve, I want to make a real quick comment. The law already provides that teachers may not take any action collectively for the purpose of obtaining a contract. And part of that law gives the school boards the authority and the power to go through a process to decertify them as a representative. Unfortunately, school boards and the School Board Association, by the way, is totally made up of people that come out of education. They're married to educators. They're supported in the election process by educators. And school boards across the state, as far as I'm aware, have never, ever stood up to a school teachers union when they, in fact, do take actions for the purpose of obtaining a contract, like here in Nashville, where they, quote, work to the rule. So, I mean, I hope they do change the law. Don't get me wrong. I think the teachers union, but the law doesn't go near far enough. Even if they don't have to collectively bargain, there's nothing to permit or to preclude them from bargaining. So look at the Davidson County School Board, made up of all educators, ex-educators, married to educators. You think they're going to not collectively bargain? When the money that goes to those elections, the people that are elected come from the unions, you're kidding yourself. Not going to happen.
Murray, thanks for the call. I mean, it's a good point. I mean, obviously, you're going to have people who are interested in running for the local school board who, A, have kids in the school, who are teachers or former teachers. I mean, that's the folks that are going to have a natural affinity to wanting to do that. I mean, when you look at the veterinary board, it's going to be people who have some affinity for the veterinary business or have animals.
Well, honestly, that's one of my arguments when I brought this bill, was that you're not taking the voice away from teachers. You're not taking the voice away from these groups. You're simply saying a school board is not burdened with the process. In the 44 systems that currently operate without this collective bargaining process, they do sit down with teachers. They do sit down with the local associations. But it's a collaborative, cooperative relationship. It's not where you're across the table from someone who's going to sue you if you don't agree to certain terms. So, it takes the animosity, the adversarial relationship out of the equation and lets school board members communicate directly with their constituents and their communities.
When you look at where this bill is, you've got, a lot of legislators who have endorsed it and embraced it. Again, Glenn Casta, Deborah Maggart, Jack Johnson. You've got others that have co-sponsored it. You've now got some business groups and other groups that are coming on board and endorsing it. Kind of where do you see it heading right now, Lee? I mean, what are some of the groups that have also said, hey, yeah, we back this?
Well, again, Tennessee Chamber of Commerce, Tennessee Business Roundtable, county commissioners, we know several other groups are going to be taking the issue up, and I don't want to guess where they're going to fall on.
Wait till they come out.
Right, but we anticipate several other groups and associations jumping on board with it, and I think that's really an eye-opener to people who are finance or business-oriented on Capitol Hill, that, look, this is a broader issue than just school boards and local unions. This will ensure the best teachers in the classroom so that our kids get the best education they deserve, which will promote jobs, which will create economic development, which will tie into all those business developments going on around the state.
When you look at kind of where the vote totals are now, again, you've got a Republican majority in the House and the Senate. You've got the Republican leadership that seems to be backing this. What should people do? Call their legislator and say, look, why should teachers' unions be running our schools? If you want to put a stop to that, this is the bill that can do it. But people need to be calling their legislators if they want their voice to be heard, because I guarantee the teachers' union's being heard.
They're out in droves, and I would certainly encourage anyone who's supportive of this measure to call and to make those emails, to let the legislators know that, look, you're not alone out there. This is not an isolated issue. This has statewide implications that will produce better students, better teachers, and better schools.
Because if all they hear from are the teachers' union-generated phone calls, then this thing's not going to get anywhere. And if folks want to take the schools back from the teachers' unions that have been running it forever, then this is the opportunity to do so. But you need to let your voice be heard. If you're a parent, if you're a former teacher, if you're a student, you ought to be calling your legislators and letting them hear from you on what you think they ought to do on this bill.
Absolutely. Call your legislator, email them, and ask them, how do these contracts ensure student performance? How does this process ensure the best interest of students? And there's really not a good answer for it.
Yeah, ask the questions, and if they don't have an answer for you, make the legislator go get the answer, and they could start by reading the bill. That might be a good starting point. Lee Harrell, thank you for being with us, Director of Government and Labor Relations, Tennessee
Thanks,
School
Steve.
Boards Association. We'll talk more about it over the next several weeks. This bill's going to be moving ahead, and we'll keep an eye on it. Call your legislators. Call the governor's office, 741-2001. Let the governor know. The governor hadn't taken a position on this bill. It's time for Bill Haslam to step up, too. We're back in a moment. This is the Steve Harrell.